Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to wrap up today with something that caught my interest. I saw somebody frequently requesting a group called Release Hallucination, particularly the track Chronostasis. After seeing it pop up in the comments like half a dozen times maybe, I was like, okay, maybe I gotta see what this is all about. So that's what we're going to dive into today. Chronostasis by Release Hallucination. Let's dive in and see what's going on. Very thrashy, but it doesn't feel like thrash metal. I think it's just fast. Curious what the tempo is on this. Assuming this is our quarter notes, 202 beats per minute. Dude, the precision on this guitar work is wild. I think there was also a harp at the end of the chorus. It's wild because it feels like we've listened to so much music already and it's only half over. This is the third time through the chorus too already, right? There is some sort of harp, dulcimer, some sort of plucked string over here on the left. Could very clearly hear it there. Also, it transitioned into this guitar line. It's interesting to hear how and when they decide to take the energy down a little bit. Layering it up. It's interesting the subtle shift in this section that pulled away from those death metal progressions to something more reminiscent of classical. They're really getting a lot of mileage out of this idea. The drummer just... bringing back the full energy to wrap the track up on. What a fun way to wrap that up. Wow. Okay. This song actually combines a lot of really cool ideas, and I appreciate the way that all of it comes together in ways that are cohesive. I didn't think that was good. I mean, this is like, it's got a little bit of classical in it. It's got a little bit of symphonic metal. There's some passages that are very straight up, just really fast played symphonic metal stuff. Things you would find in, just Nightwish or Epica. Or, any band that has based a lot of their sound off of big symphonic bands like those. The genre sort of has a homogenized, or can have a homogenized sound, and we hear some of that in here, but it's also presented against the thrashings of really ridiculously fast thrash metal, and also harmonic progressions more commonly found in death and tech death. Uh, it's a lot of really interesting things come to. Oh, and vocally, we also enter into some pop melodies as well. It's not something that we reside in frequently. I feel like that symphonic metal, that brighter, semi-classical vocal melody writing is more prevalent in this track, but it's not the exclusive mode that the vocal melodies are in. So it's just a lot of ideas smashed together in a way that I didn't think would work. It was also really cool listening to that really fast picking on the guitars, what I normally associate with thrash metal, and even feels a little faster than thrash metal that I've heard in the past. Maybe this is slow for people who have heard the extents of thrash metal, but this is fast for me, okay? But it was interesting hearing that style of playing, not with metal progressions. I really thought that was cool. It made it difficult to classify at the beginning until I started breaking it down into these components and realizing that this group is just using influences from all over the place. But yeah, like I found that sound to be really cool. Now, one thing I have to bring up, and I really hate that I'm bringing this up, but I have to. It dominated a bit of my thought process on this. Being where we are today with music, and my perceptions of human limits. Now, granted, my limits are continuing to be shattered. Every time I think I've heard somebody play as fast or as precise as a human could, y'all send me a video of some drummer who is just like a machine, and then someone who's even more machine than them, and then a guitarist who's just an android. And I'm just like, how do people do this? So I'm not accusing this of accusing, that might be the wrong word. I'm not saying that this is all programmed music. But if it's not, most of that reaction would have been my jaw on the floor and me picking it up. The composition itself is interesting. I don't think that it is as complex or as deep as I would want for a big reaction video like this, breaking it down, big ol' analysis stuff. But what really delivers the band for me, what elevates them above other, can I even say similar bands? I've never heard anything like this. What elevates it is this freaking speed, man. Listening to the picking, the 16th note picking on the guitars, listening to the bass kicks at the speed. And it's not even just the fact that they're playing them at the speed, but it's the precision. There is equal space, or at least seemingly equal space, because honestly, I can't really hear this fast, but it feels very evenly placed, very symmetrical. What I'm saying is that there isn't any moment when I immediately heard, oh, that was a bit sloppy. So it's not just the playing at this speed, it's the precision of playing at this speed, and of course, the endurance of playing at this speed for as long as this track is, that my mind just says, I don't know if this is human. And it really doesn't matter one way or the other, except for my personal curiosity. On a purely artistic or musical level, there's a part of me that doesn't care if it's performed or not. The art stands on its own aside from the performance. Now, I am somebody who enjoys performances, though. I've talked about this in the past. I love jazz. I love watching jazz. Jazz isn't really a genre I like to listen to on disc or pre-recorded stuff. So that mixed with the decline of the use of musicians as more and more digital instrumentation becomes viable, even for acoustic instruments. I will always support live musicians playing music. But honestly, when it comes to the art, I don't care. This stands apart whether it's playable by humans or not. I'm still here to break down the composition of it and how all that works together to create the song. The song sort of exists aside from any sort of performance of it. So like I said, it really doesn't matter, except my curiosity. Are there people out there that are doing this? And if so, how? That's all I want to say on that topic. It just, this is fast. It really is. And I don't have to tell you that. You heard the music. 202 beats per minute, consistently leaning into 16th notes is no small feat at all. That's 800 notes a minute. Just think about that. Now, granted, they weren't playing at quarter or 16th notes all the time, but they were a lot. That is a lot of notes to play. And this sort of brings into the next idea I have is I've really felt like we had listened to an entire song by the time we were like 2.5 minutes in. The speed of the song both creates a density to sections that make them feel like they're longer than they are, but also the speed allows us to get through sections rather quickly. And so I think it was only 3 minutes in, we had already done 3 verses and 3 choruses, which is just ridiculous. And I was beginning to feel fatigued. This is sonic overload. There's so much auditory information being slammed into my head at any moment of this track. that it certainly warps time. It warps my perception of time, at least, and the song feels a lot longer than it is. Interestingly, in a completely inverse scenario, once we hit the bridge and then the guitar solo section and then the final chorus, basically the back half of the track, the last 3 minutes, those felt really quick. I don't know if it was, I don't know. Maybe it was, I was becoming accustomed to this time dilation that this, I mean, it's called chronostasis, which is about being stuck in time. I felt like I was being rocketed through time, the opposite of this. Although, I guess on the opposite side of things, I felt like I was moving through time really quickly, and then I realized time was moving very slowly compared to that. I thought I had listened to 10 minutes worth of music in just three. So, Chronostasis kind of fits. That's a good title for this. um, yeah, just time gets really wonky when I'm exposed to this high density of musical information. Yeah, and if you're playing at this speed, just put the word Chronos or time or anything like that in your title, and it's gonna feel accurate. Oh man. So, what I think drives a lot of this and kind of grounds it and roots it a little bit and doesn't have it flying off into the sun due to sheer velocity are the vocals. Regardless of the fact that everybody else is hitting 800 notes a minute, the vocalist has a rather slower, constrained melody. Some of that I think is tied to lyrics. We could speed this up. We could certainly go into fast rap style of music, and we would have this really cool synergy between the musical rhythm or the instrumental rhythms and the lyrical ones. But I really like this contrast here. It feels like time is warping. Most of the instruments are going a million miles an hour, and then the vocalist is taking their time with these very soothing, palatable vocal melodies on top of all of this chaos underneath it. I really like that contrast. I think it works fantastically. But the melodies are also very palatable, whereas the guitar lines, first of all, can kind of get blurred into all of the notes. I found it difficult sometimes to keep up with what the pitches were because even aside from just the amount of pitches thrown into my ear, the length of the notes are so tiny. You barely get any of that note, the chord pitch before the next note started. And they sort of just, I don't know, it's so they're not muted, right? But they sort of sound muted because we just move through these notes so quickly. The length of the notes, as far as measuring it in probably milliseconds, is so small. So I don't really get a lot of time to get to know the notes. I don't really get to really see them. They go by in a blur, like an auditory blur. So that's kind of chaotic. And again, we have this contrast. The vocals are very smooth, very palatable in what they're saying. I can hear the notes to them. And to me, if it wasn't for the vocals, if they had excluded vocals done instrumental, or if they had chosen to go with faster vocals, whether that's rapping or faster growling, or even just really fast singing, I guess, which would sound to me bizarre. But if they had decided to go in that direction, I certainly would have been overwhelmed by the end of the track. It's really nice to have this home center speed to focus on and sort of allow everything else to blur around you while you can maintain this feeling of being here with the vocal delivery. Now, as I mentioned, there's a lot of ideas in here. We kick it off with this really fast thrash stuff, but we don't have thrash metal chord progressions and note choices here. In fact, what I hear is something closer to symphonic metal. I've never heard symphonic metal played at this speed. It is bonkers, but it kind of is cool. Um, regardless, we move from this verse into the chorus where we sort of pull all the energy back a little bit. I don't remember if it was exactly halftime. Maybe we just took a tempo shift. I don't remember. But we rein everything in for a moment. This is necessary. This push and pull, this ebb and flow to the song. Otherwise, it can become very draining just to be at this high level all the time, but inversely so for people who might become more accustomed to it quicker than others. It also becomes the status quo. And I think when you have this type of extremity, you don't want it to ever become the norm. You really want to keep it as an extreme sound. So pulling the song back, bringing the tempo down, is going to help retain that energy and that extremity and continue to allow the faster moments to feel fast. What's also cool here is we get a little bit of some different instrumentation, including a harp or a dulcimer or some sort of plucked string. It's barely audible throughout most of the chorus. At the very end of the chorus, the guitars hold out a note or something and it kind of fades a little bit. The vocals are still present, and it sort of leaves this gap where you can listen off to the left. You can hear this harp. What I liked is after the second chorus, when this came in, it introduced a new riff coming off of that final idea from the chorus, which became the riff for the guitars in the bridge. Maybe that was the third chorus. I don't remember. There's just so many sections. It was just a really beautiful transition, taking an idea that was already present in the chorus that we've heard several times, modifying it, expanding it, and then transforming it into a new idea and passing it off to another instrument to really take forward and push forward with the track and explore a new section with this new idea. It's just wonderful writing. There are a couple of sections in here that feel a bit more of we were doing this, now we're doing this as far as transitions go, but much like that one section, there are plenty of moments in here where I feel like the song naturally evolves between ideas, and I think that helped me at least stick along for the ride, because if I was being forced to catch up with all these and jump over these hurdles of harsh transitions, I don't think I would have been as receptive to the track as I am. Is there anything else I wanted to talk about? The guitar solo was surprisingly well paced. For this, I really figured we were going to get shred, and we did get a little bit of it, but there was also some really nice, slower moving sections that helped create some contrast within that, showcase some strong melody writing and shred simultaneously. Just a really great guitar solo. The drumming is just insane. Every moment of it. I mean, the guitars, they're insane too. Vocal delivery is great. Everything's just done up to such a high standard. It just blows me away. I'm going to find some lyrics and I'm going to look for a live video. I guess maybe I'll just do some research into it too to see if this is human playing or not. Alright. I guess just one interesting piece of information is that it's a two-piece band. There is a vocalist and lyricist and a guitarist. Both of them work on music. One of them handles mixing and mastering, but there's no drummer. So, I'm envisioning this that the drums are programmed, but the guitaring is not. In which case, what? I'm kind of blown away by that. It's just out of this world, robotic precision to the guitar work. I don't know. Lyrically, the song is about being stuck somewhere where there is no change. Wanting change in that area, and not being a perfect paradise. There is a bit of suffering, there is some pain. At one point, has a metaphor of this person being a sacrificial sheep. I think this is interesting too, because the first time this metaphor comes up, it says there's a foolish group of people cry for the altar sheep, but tomorrow laughs, not knowing it's me. Later, it says the scared audience calls for that sacrificed sheep, even though it knows it's me, tomorrow still calls me. The idea that I am a sacrifice today, tomorrow I probably will be as well. Nothing changes in this never, never, never ending chronostasis, as the chorus states. It says there are loudening screams of terror, horrendous clappings reverberate in vain. It talks about all this through the concept of memories. I don't think that this song is about memories being in chronostasis, but it's definitely an idea that pops up a couple of times and is a very strong parallel, because your memories don't change, you just remember them, and if they are terrible, you remember that terrible incident over and over without change to it. It talks about vibrant petals fluttering in the air, rain droplets down on my face. At other times, that line is replaced with seeing a setting sun, so radiant that it looks like it's actually rising up. That today is over. Tomorrow comes, but it's not going to be any different than today. Inside this never, never, never ending chronostasis. So, yeah, I don't know that that particularly relates to the music, but it did feel like the song was trapped in time at points. Or at least I was trapped in time, we'll put it that way. So that was a pretty neat effect. At least in that part. There are definitely songs in the past I've listened to. I'm like, man, this just needs to end. How are we still listening to it? It's only 5 minutes long. But here I think it's a really neat experiential component that lines up with the lyrical themes. Those are my thoughts on Release Hallucination's Chronostasis. What are your thoughts? Is there anything in here that stood out to you? Anything you'd like to add on to what I said or correct me on? Maybe you just have your own thoughts, opinions, and perspectives about this track. Let me know all that down in the comments section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. It'll take you to this menu right here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three. That wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow. We're going to wrap up this week's theme of melodic bass lines and check out some brand new music. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.